All right, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask that you, our first order of business, I'm going to ask that you join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So thank you for joining us. First, I'd like to start out just a reminder, friendly reminder. If you have electronic devices with you, please put them on airplane mode or on silent mode so they don't disrupt the meeting. And with that, I'm going to make a few introductions. So I'm going to start with staff. This evening, we have with us, to my right, our City Administrator, Mike Barone. Finance Director Brian Grimm is absent this evening. Be with us next time. Next, we have David Abel, our Community Development Director. And then we have Kent with us, our City Attorney with Kennedy and Graven, Ron Batty. And our Chief of Police, Paul Falls, will be joining us a little bit later. And then I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm the Mayor. And to my left, our council members, Mike Molitor, Shannon Bruce, John Tschumperlin, and then on the end we have a couple more staff people. Our consultant with WSB, Paul Hornby, our engineer. Our city clerk is Kris Linquist, and then our director of administration, Cassandra Tabor, and also our public works director, Gary Peters, is with us this evening. Absent or maybe attending later will be our council member Pam Mortenson. So with that, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none. Then all those in favor, or is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion was made by Ms. Bruce and seconded by Mr. Tschumperlin. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0. So next we have two special presentations. So I'd like to welcome Lindsay Brown, who is the Executive Director of Harrison Bay Senior Living. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
I'm the Executive Director with Harrison Bay Senior Living, and I have Lana Thomason as our Assistant Executive Director. Here I have some renderings of what the project will look like once it's completed. From the front there, Commerce Boulevard would be on the left, and then the rear view from Dutch Lake.
Okay.
So we have a leasing office now open on Commerce Boulevard in Mound, just about a block south from the Walgreens, and the building will be located at 1861 Commerce Boulevard. In between Dutch Lake and Harrison Bay on Minnetrista. We'll be opening October 1st of this year. We're now accepting employment applications, so we have a variety, everything from kitchen staff, housekeeping, of course, nursing and administrative staff, as well as community life. We have 72 apartment homes. 20 of those are in a secured memory care area, which is all along the first floor. And the other 52 can range from independent plus assisted living all the way up to enhanced care or end-of-life care. We practice aging in place, so people can just pick out whatever apartment they like, and as their needs change, we bring the care to them, so they're not having to move around the building as their needs change. The apartments all have a washer dryer unit, granite countertops, full kitchens and full appliances, so it's like a full luxury apartment. There's no skimping on anything. Some of them do have balconies and nice views. They have their own temperature control in each apartment. And the community as a whole is more of a resort style or like a cruise ship. So we have exercise classes, church services, a bistro, a pub, fitness room, a restaurant style dining where they can pick from a variety of options as far as meal plans and housekeeping and some of those other add-ons. So really meant for anyone anywhere from independent, just looking to have fun and join into a community, all the way through end of life. We practice person-centered care. So the person really is in control over when and how they want their care, and then we're just here to help with meet their needs. We really promote independence, so we have all walk-in showers, grab bars, a daily safety check. We'll have nurses around the clock. So if there is an emergency, then there's always someone around to help them. We'll also have some third-party providers that will help supplement our care. We have a physician on site, dentist, podiatrist, PT, OT, and speech therapy, skilled nursing. So along with all of our partners in the community, we can help people to stay in their new apartment homes as long as they like to. It is a month-to-month rental, so you can give us notice anytime. We will have a small section that would be for low income, and that's in the form of elderly waiver. So it really is only for the elderly population, and that's limited in availability. It will mostly be used for our residents as they run out of money and they can stay in their same apartment and go on that program, but we won't be taking, large numbers of the low income. We're managed by Tabor Senior Living, which has close to 50 locations now in 5 states. Our home office is in Bloomington, so we get a lot of great support and guidance from them. Are there any questions?
It looks very nice. I go by it all the time, so I've seen from the ground up on where you're at right now. So,
How's the memory care unit different from the rest of it?
It is secured, so it's on the first floor. We have all the common spaces on the first floor, and then this wing on the side here is all memory care. So that's kind of their own area where we would really anticipate their needs. We walk them through the day. We make sure that they're up and getting to meals and activities, keeping entertained. We have lighting that works with their circadian rhythm, so it helps them to stay awake during the day and then sleep at night. We also have black toilet seats and black light switches, which help with depth perception and then being able to identify those objects. So just some really special things to help those folks in that area. And so that would be the only time you'd have to move apartments, is if you were an independent or assisted and you needed that extra help.
Do you offer or plan on offering like adult daycare?
Not that I'm aware of, because we are mostly a rental and services type. But we have had people, maybe if their spouse leaves and maybe really should be in memory care, but their spouse can help them stay in assisted living, then maybe they'll go to memory care for the day when their spouse leaves, so they're an internal resident. But we do have to have doctor's orders and being able to care for anybody. So I guess it would be just a liability or working with to see how we could accommodate their care needs, and then still, that's something we can look at. We do want to be flexible and accommodating.
good. Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. A nice facility for the greater community. So, thank you. So next on our agenda, Mr. Barone is going to review our 2017-2018 strategic plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to go through this rather quickly, so I'm going to skip around quite a bit as I go through the slides. I just wanted to, just before I start, just kind of remind the Council that, we put together back in Feb of 2017 a 2-year strategic plan. We updated that in 2018 in Feb. So we're probably 75% through our plan cycle year. We did have some additions in 2018. Those got incorporated into the presentation that you'll see tonight, and as well as the both priorities and then accomplishments. So, like I said, I'm going to kind of go through this quickly. Those are 5 strategic priorities that we have here at Minnetrista. And the first one, infrastructure, maintenance, and expansion, is probably the busiest one that we have, mostly because that's where we are in our growth cycle. We're a growing community, so we're dealing with all the infrastructure things, whether it's water, utilities, or the pavement management schedule related to roads and road construction. Some of the action items that we have in our plan have to do with our 3rd water tower site, trying to find a location for that, dealing with pressure reducing, cleaning the water towers and the water mains on a schedule, painting the water towers, our pavement management plan. Things like stormwater ponds, we've got our new swamp software. We've got a couple of big projects that we'll be finishing this year in the Halstead Drive, and then also the Enchanted Tuxedo. We've got the County Road 44 force main going on, the I&I inspection program that's ongoing now. We also wanted to check on fire hydrant pressure, which we did within the last couple of months, potentially looking at small cell wireless, and then we have some curb sections on Sunnybrook. And just to kind of buzz through some of the items that have been completed to date since the beginning of 2017, we did get our 2 water plants online. We haven't found a site, but we're still working on that. You'll be hearing from the folks at SEH at our next city council meeting. We did clean the water towers, but have not painted them. Did purchase our SCADA system, put 3 auto flushers on a few hydrants in Hunter's Crest in order to kind of keep the water moving there since we don't have a loop system in that part of town. Put in a couple of stir raters into our water towers, to, especially for wintertime use. We've talked about pressure reducing, we've talked about pavement management and started updating that. The projects began on those 2 road projects as mentioned earlier. We did all our mill and overlay last year. Finished the parking lot in Lyle Park. We revised our MS4 stormwater program. As I mentioned earlier, we did purchase our swamp. We called for an OSHA inspection. Generally, they find you, but we found them and passed with flying colors. We did purchase a forklift as well, based on that OSHA report. Couple things here. Standard specs and detail plates were updated for 2018. We did order the dust abatement tank, and they'll be implementing that very soon. We did some road coring in order to anticipate or to figure out which roads needed to be done in our 18 CIP. Sorry, dust abatement showed up there twice. Again, we did the fire hydrant pressure testing in Hunter's Crest. And so it was quite a busy year in that first strategic plan, infrastructure and maintenance. So moving on to number 2, it's the civic engagement, where we try to reach out and engage different people or organizations by a number of different ways. Some of the things that we had for action items was to implement an email blast system, meet with other government jurisdictions, which we actually did last year with emergency management with St. Bonnie, and then just tonight again checking out the new MRAP vehicle. Promoting our city events, when those were highly attended, both of them this year in May. At the State of City in February, we did discuss the Crime Prevention Fund. That's coming up here in June. Chief Falls will be presenting something to the City Council on June 18th to discuss that. We had our annual bus tour in 17. There's one coming up June 12th here in 18. We did a pretty significant upgrade, even though the website was new, a pretty significant upgrade to our building inspections pages on the city website. We rolled out our e-alerts within that time frame. Continue to support West Tonka Community Commerce. We did allocate CDBG block grants for both weekend and senior community services. A little earlier this year, we started the Council Corner, which is another email blast item that people can, if they subscribe, can find out what happened at the City Council meeting earlier that week. We had a ribbon cutting last September for the opening of the 2 treatment plants, and so those are the action items under the civic engagement. We're going to move on to effective governance. And we had a whole host of action items on there, including ordinances, one of being the short-term rentals, which we just dealt with in our last council meeting. We still have to look at our leave benefits yet this year. Big one, obviously, was the 2040 comp plan, and after that, we'll be looking at the zoning as it gets impacted by the approved comp plan. And as mentioned, I think a little earlier this year, we're looking at a new phone and voicemail system for City Hall, since ours is end of life as of the end of this calendar year. We completed some items in this area by coming up with the alternates, and kind of paid off for us this year because we had the opportunity to move some alternates into full commission roles after a few people on the commissions left. Did the predatory offender ordinance. We received the CAFR award, I don't know how many years in a row, I think it's 13. Pretty close to that if I didn't get that number right. For the financial audit 16, which we got last year. We did our community survey in 2017. We updated our fire codes to the latest version, which is the 2015. Lisa Whalen got the Minnesota Women in Government Leadership Award last year down at the conference in Rochester. We also settled 3 labor agreements earlier this year with all 3 unions, police officers, police supervisors, and public works. We submitted our Paquity implementation report, have not heard back, but doesn't mean bad things or good things. It's generally a 6 or 8 month wait on that report response. Kris Linquist is now Vice President of the MCFOA for the 18-19 calendar years. We have Patricia Thole resigned from the council and John Tschumperlin appointed to the remainder of her term. Those are all the action items that happened under effective governance. Moving on to the fourth one, you have natural resources and recreational amenities. Those are the action items that we came up with for this area. And then some of the areas were things that we completed. We worked with Three Rivers Park District and MCWD to help with the development in the future for the Kuchar property for a water improvement project that will be located in our city. We moved towards a rubber mulch product instead of wood fiber or wood chips at a few parks for the playground area. Basketball court went in at Marsh, new playground equipment at Douglas Park. We had our tree trust sale that we were able to sell trees at pretty low cost through a grant through MCWD. We sold 90 trees. And then finally, we installed this, based on a resident, I don't know if complaint's the right word, but request, installed a sign at the Tuxedo Boat Launch that allows vehicles to park there without a trailer in the winter months. And then the fifth and final priority is plan to direct growth. And essentially we came up with these action items. One of the bigger items was to kind of push off to some point in the future additional commercial things for the city of Minnetrista, at least at this point. But we did, like I said earlier, complete the comp plan for 2040, and we have been working on a number of ordinances, two that I indicated we passed are the sexual offender ordinance and the short-term rental. So, you know, when I put this together and I realized I had 32 slides, I wasn't going to sit and read each line of each slide. We'd be here for another 40 minutes, I think. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of check in and kind of show the council where we're at. We're certainly open to additional ideas, but as it stands right now, we still have plenty of work to do what we currently have in our work plan. So my preference would be if you have something, it probably would have to replace something on there versus being something in addition to. And then our next cycle will probably take place after the election this fall, and we get whoever's seated as the 5-member council will probably end up doing this process again in January or February next year with the 5 members that are on the council at that point in time. So I don't know if anybody have any questions about anything. And
No, I know, John, you weren't involved in all of this, but
It looked like a very aggressive plan. I'm pleased with what has been accomplished.
Yeah. Staff has done a tremendous job, great job, everybody. So, anybody else? Otherwise, thank you very much. It's good to know and good to get those updates, and also just to see all of the things that we've been able to accomplish. So, with that, then we'll move on to our persons to be heard. I believe there's one person. Thank you, Gary. So under persons to be heard, we do have somebody signed up, Mr. Mark Feldman. And Mr. Feldman, you'll have to state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to talk to us. And we probably won't take any action, but we might be able to direct you to some staff members or maybe take action at a later date.
My name is Dr. Mark Feldman. I just moved here to 8325 Oxyoke Circle about 5-6 weeks ago. And my concern is we have no access to high-speed internet. Frontier apparently comes to our property, but they themselves measured it at less than 1 megabyte per second. So that's not adequate for internet. We have HughesNet that bumps us up a little bit, but I want to know why we can't have high-speed internet at our residence. I live on Oxyoke Circle. There are at least 15 to 17 residences along that street. It's a dead-end street that all have have the same issue. I guess I'm the one that's here to say something about it.
We've heard that complaint before. You're not the only one. The city of Minnetrista is roughly 36 square miles. There's 7,000 people here, so we're not really densely populated. I mean, we have a lot of people here, but, you know, relatively speaking, that's a lot of land, and we're kind of at the mercy a little bit of the vendor and the marketplace that reacts to that. So they have marketing plans for rolling out additional high-speed internet to their communities. But as far as we know, it's going to be difficult for us to advocate to get additional high-speed internet here.
They're right now within about a quarter of a mile of that street.
Yeah,
And there are 17 residences on there. I'm sorry, but in this day and age, high-speed internet is basically a utility that is necessary.
I completely understand that, but they have a formula that they use to calculate a density requirement. We've had a few requests in the past for
So
the same kind of thing. It has to meet their criteria.
if they were to request it, and all of their residents could,
Certainly can. I'll let
To
Cassandra talk
maybe,
about
yeah.
this too. but-
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that when people, Cassandra, Director of Administration, I do a lot of our, I handle all of our communications. So, two things. One, Mr. Barone is exactly correct. So what we hear from them is unless there's a density demand that warrants them making a profit, it's very difficult.
What is that density?
It's different depending on the company or the organization that's providing it, but it's significantly higher than what we have in a majority of the area for Minnetrista.
in the rural area.
In the rural area. Well, really, in general, in Minnetrista, I mean, we barely get up to some of the density requirements, even in some of the more populated areas. They have let me know as I reach out, every time somebody has a concern, I reach out on their behalf as well. They have let me know that absolutely, residents, they're gonna hear a lot stronger than they're gonna hear from the city because we don't have leverage necessarily because of our density.
Well, but you're in contract.
Correct, and it's based on density, and that density is the same for our community as in all the other communities in our area and surrounding state.
So the
not
contract says
unusual.
that if your density is X, then they have to provide service.
Basically, yes.
What is their density description?
I'd have to look specifically because I wasn't prepared to answer your question, so I don't know off the top of my head. But like I said, it's higher than a majority of areas in Minnetrista. It's not 15 rooftops, unfortunately. It's not 17 rooftops.
On one street.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
And if they were to
Then I think
request it and
maybe,
pay
I guess
for it?
I would suggest that maybe you find another provider and do a negotiation with
Yeah.
it because people didn't move out here to have their neighbor 15 feet away from them.
Yeah.
The reason that they're here is because they want a little space. And if MediaCom is not willing to run that line and connect people, then I think it's time to find something else.
Yeah.
What can we do as citizens?
So there's a couple of things, as Mayor Whalen just mentioned. There is the ability for you as an individual or as a group of citizens on your own behalf to reach out to MediaCom. I'm absolutely happy to support you with that. To say, what would it cost for you to do it? And you'd have to then be willing to share a portion of that cost, at which they would determine.
Well, we have to
what
run
that
it
would
from the street to our house, but they should have to have it run past us in the street. I mean, we have no sewer,
be. Yeah,
we have no water.
unfortunately.
We can get past those things.
Yeah.
Right.
We cannot get past the internet.
Yeah, and I absolutely hear what you're saying, and unfortunately, it's not something that's highly regulated that mandates that they provide that. So the FCC doesn't require that it's provided, so it's
No,
very
but
difficult.
These people can.
No, we
Unfortunately, they
Oh,
Can't.
can't. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately they
Yeah,
can't,
I
and I've been in contact with
Yeah.
them, and it is a constant thing. We have looked to see if others will run lines. There's some competition pieces that come into play that are outside of us, so if MediaCom's not willing to share ground space that they already have within a certain amount of distance, the nodes can only be so close for competition. So it's just like any other business that has franchises. We're running into distance pieces that come into play. But I would absolutely encourage you to chat with them because you're gonna get
They're just
this,
gonna send you back.
They're gonna get this-
You-
right, because they don't wanna lay line.
One of the things that is on our strategic plan is looking into small cell wireless and working with the telecommunication service providers to find out what we can do as a city to encourage them to put small cell wireless in Minnetrista. And that doesn't require laying wires in the ground. Those are little things that you put on telephone poles or anything.
Yeah.
So that's an option.
It's an option. One of the things with small cell, she's correct, it doesn't require necessarily laying any line, but it may require, as you have your towers, it may require for them to build more towers. Well, that tower cost to them, they want to see a profit on the other side. So it is exploring what our options are, trying to figure it out. So far, we're not seeing that there are other organizations willing to do that, or if they are willing to do that, then they have to convince Mediacom or someone else to share their tower message that's coming out of their tower, the signals. It's pretty hard to convince someone to take something that they're profitable at and share it with somebody who's going to make a profit. So it is something we're exploring, but absolutely reach out to them. But unfortunately, we don't have a direct impact. If you would look to see, you've probably seen it in the papers lately, it's coming out of St. Paul. They're fighting the FCC because Frontier specifically. Oh, okay. So what's happening right now out of St. Paul is a large group of people have pushed back and said, hey, this isn't acceptable. So Frontier is being investigated, and it was in our packet last meeting. So if you look at the packet online, yeah, but it tells you what they're doing, and really it's the exact same thing. Why can't we get high speed? Why can't we get it in our area? Why isn't this regulated by the FCC? So everyone has similar questions, whether it's St. Paul or Minnetrista, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
Yeah, call and they'll transfer you in. Yep, and I'm happy if there's something specific I can help support you guys in communicating to Mediacom. Sometimes I can get them to get back to you faster. I mean, I can't make them do anything. I can get them to communicate faster oftentimes.
All right. Yeah, it's a difficult situation.
It's a tough nut to crack out here because it's, essentially a rural community. It's not like where I live in Eden Prairie where it's 60-something thousand people. Here you've got the same square mileage actually.
Right.
And it's 7,000 people, so it's just a lot harder for them to make a profit, which is their way of not wanting to lay a lot of line.
I've had Frontier Net for years, and I mean, we have less houses, roofs in our area than he does on Oxio.
Yeah.
And I think there's a booster or a box they have on Deer Creek roads. I mean, they're not that far away.
No, and it's depending too then where they want to
Where
put
the
those
nodes
boosters
are.
in. Because you're right, you have it as well, and they have it. It's just their signal by the time it's getting to them. Even if, and that's frustrating for people too. That's one of the FCC pieces that came up at the last meeting. If you read those portions in the paper, people are complaining that, hey, I'm paying for 6 and I'm getting 1. And so I do encourage people too when they call in and they're saying I'm paying for 6. There are ways they can get online and reliably test what they're actually getting, because that gives them some leverage too to go back and say I'm paying for 6. You're charging me for 6. You told me to upgrade to 8 and it would go better, but it didn't matter. I upgraded to 8 because I'm still only getting 1 feeding through. So I'm really encouraging people to do that check, to call back, because they do have a larger voice as individual consumers than we as a city directly have in some ways.
Okay. Good information to know.
Yep.
Unfortunately, not good to hear.
No, absolutely. And like I said, mentioned too, anytime any of our residents call in, I take their concern. If they're wanting to get feedback from one of our providers, if they're struggling with that, if they're needing support, I do that. Typically same day, just give them whatever we can to help facilitate that conversation.
Okay. All right, nobody else has signed up, so we'll move on to our consent agenda items. They consist of approve our work session meeting minutes from May 21st, 2018, approve our regular meeting minutes from May 21st, 2018, and a resolution to approve our claims, a resolution to approve polling location agreements for the 2018 election cycle, and then adopt ordinance 453 by title and summary. Is that supposed to be adopt and or publish? No, just adopt? Okay, by title and summary. Okay, and then approve lakeside setback variance at 4595 Marywood Lane, and approve a purchase of trees for Lyle Park. Any questions?
I'd like to pull item E.
Okay, that remains A, B, C, D, F, and G.
So, and I have a couple questions on C, so I'd like to pull C.
Okay, claims. So we have A, B, D, F, and G. Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion has been made by Mr. Tschumperlin and seconded by Ms. Mortenson for A, B, D, F, and G. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. We'll start with C then.
Oh, and Mike, you might have gotten back to me, but I wasn't able to
I
get
have not,
emails.
council member, so I apologize.
So that's okay. My question earlier this morning to Mike was, under lawn maintenance, there was a $6,000, a little over $6,000 bill. I'm assuming that's for spring maintenance, but it seemed real high.
Gary?
So,
He's our guy.
Gary, you can come to the podium. Yeah, thanks.
Mayor Council, yeah, it is billed for both, the little bit that we did have, in April, it's all for all our spring cleanups, and then our mowing for the month. There was actually a 5-week period this month, so it's an extra week. Normally it's 4 weeks of mowing, this time it's 5. All the spring cleanups are included. Normally it comes in April, but with the snowstorm we had, they didn't get started, so we didn't get a bill at all in April. So it's all for basically May. So.
okay, that's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to double check. And the other question, Mike, again, was on the Cal-Atlantic homes, what that is.
Do you recall what that is? Because I don't.
How much was it?
I don't know.
It's
Total
$22,000.
$22,000.
I believe it says return of,
Probably a
it says CO, Certificate of Occupancy, and I'm
Mhm.
assuming it's a refund of,
Refund of the deposit they probably had
Mhm.
in to get their CO. Or they canceled the permit potentially.
I actually drove by the houses this morning to verify the addresses, and they're all occupied, because I want to make sure that they actually had
yeah.
sod.
Ms. Linquist,
Yeah,
you
I entered that one, so I know what it is.
okay.
It's for refunds of the temporary COs and also for some tree
Okay.
reimbursements.
Okay,
So
Okay, thanks.
Great. Good to know.
That was it.
All right.
I believe there was 3 homes, 3 temporary COs.
Okay. So with that, then, is there a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Ms. Mortenson and seconded by Ms. Bruce to approve claims as presented. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. So we move on to number E, Ms. Bruce.
The short-term rental adoption, I pulled simply because I didn't want it on the consent agenda item
Sure.
as an item. I think it's the first time we've looked at the actual language in the ordinance since it was adopted. And I just wanted to pull it off because I'm going to vote against it,
Sure.
obviously. But I also think it's unenforceable the way that it's written, and I think it's unconstitutional. And I
Okay.
think we're going to find ourselves in court the first time we attempt to enforce something. And I don't want to see that happen to the city, and that's why I'm voting against it. I think it's a bad ordinance, and I think it's a big mistake.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, is there a motion to adopt ordinance 453 by title and summary?
So moved.
Pardon?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, what you're really doing, I believe, is adopting a resolution authorizing publication of the
That's what I
ordinance
thought.
by title
Right.
and summary. The ordinance has been adopted.
Right,
All this is doing is saving the publication cost.
right, and that's what I thought. That's why I asked.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
think
sorry,
that-
I wasn't real clear on that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the agenda it states it a little bit confusingly. If you look at your staff report, the motion, the recommended action in the staff report, I think correctly states.
Okay, thank you. So we aren't adopting the ordinance. We've already done that last time. So this is a resolution to
Authorize
Publication
publication by title
by
and summary.
title and summary, so we don't have to publicize or print the whole thing. So, all right, so so you made a motion, Mr. Molitor. So is that okay to make that
That's
change?
what I was motioning on.
All right, thank you. Is there a second then?
I'll second that.
Okay, no further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye. All those opposed?
No.
4 ayes, 1 no. So that concludes our consent agenda items. We have no public hearings this evening, so we'll move on to our business items. Approve a conditional offer of employment to Robert Goodman for the building inspector position. Ms. Tabor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. On behalf of the Personnel Committee, it's being brought before you to approve a conditional offer of employment for Robert Goodman as our building inspector. We did post, as we had mentioned before, this position as open until filled. It currently stands that way. We originally, in this first block of time, received 5 applicants. We offered interviews to 4 of them, and then we had 3 applicants that actually attended their scheduled interviews. Staff whittled it down to 2 final applicants. Those 2 applicants stood out significantly compared to the other 3. And Mr. Robert Goodman emerged as the choice for hire. We are working on the final steps still as well, so process including reviewing of his references, driving record, and criminal history. That was as of when this was written. I actually just got the report back from the police department that all came back clear. Terms of employment offer for Mr. Goodman are outlined as attached in the conditional offer of employment. I did want just to make a couple of notes as well. So one of the things that the council set for us as we were looking to fill this position and we're looking to hire is to stay within that first quartile. So we were able to offer him this position within that first quartile of the pay range for this job description within our pay program. This leaves us with no financial burden or loss compared to the last person who held this position at what pay he left at or at what we hired at. So we're still in a good position there. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood as well. The previous building inspector came to us with an ICC certification. Mr. Goodman is coming to us with a building official limited license. So just for clarification, because I know myself as not a building specialist, I didn't know the difference between these things. So the ICC certification is from the International Code Council. So that says that you have an understanding of code and how code is written. The building official limited license allows the person with that licensure to inspect single and double family dwellings and any accessory that comes with those buildings. So he's coming to us, I wouldn't say more qualified, but more aligned with what we're needing him to do immediately, which is nice. That also allows him to act under the building official with what the building official feels that he's capable of doing as he grows and works towards his own building official licensure, which is pretty common. Most people work towards that designation. He has 10 years of residential building experience. Our past person who came to us had internship experience but hadn't actually worked in the field per se. He's worked in the field for 10 years with builders, with cities, with residents and people in the area. So he's used to doing the actual work. Now it's going to be inspecting the work. So he's has more education and then more of that hands-on side of it than we had in the past. So the reason I wanted to point those things out is because we did feel like as a personnel committee that he would come to the city with field skills that would really shorten that learning curve. The other candidate that we were looking at was also very strong. His educational level was high. He just didn't have that outdoors, boots in the mud, same level of experience. I think will just shorten that process for us. He's got a good disposition, is used to working with people out in the field, so I think that's going to reflect well with the builders and with the residents as well in our area. In conversation with him, he is ready to make this jump from private to public sector immediately, and so if this is approved and if you approve this conditional offer, he would be eligible to begin tomorrow, and that would be our plan now that his backgrounding is back. So questions, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, great presentation, very thorough. Any questions? Okay, good, see, very thorough. All right, otherwise, is there a motion to approve the conditional offer of employment to Robert Goodman for the building inspector position?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made by Ms. Mortenson and seconded by Mr. Tschumperlin. Further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, Motion passes. So we're anxious to get him on board. I know Jesse will be very pleased to get that help. So.
We should see him here tomorrow morning. I'll make a phone call this evening.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Barone, next we have a payment of an easement agreement for Harry Stillwell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This has been kind of a weird situation. I was here at the council meeting last time, and under my staff reports talked about the situation that Mr. Stillwell was in with the city going back a dozen years, essentially, and decided that I would try to make the offer to Mr. Stillwell that we would reimburse him for the work done, and then once that is done, he would just have to provide us with the documentation and sign off on the release forms, et cetera. That didn't really, that was not what Mr. Stillwell wanted. I'm not convinced that he would ever go for it. So after consulting with the city attorney and exchanging phone calls between myself and Mr. Stillwell and city attorney and Mr. Stillwell, we essentially figured out that it's no different to pay him after he does the work and submits his claim for reimbursement, or just pay him the $37.25 in cash, which is the low quote that he found. He got 3 quotes at my request. And so I think this will actually end it a lot sooner than later. I put the kind of the history of this, and like I said, it's been going on for about 12 years, and I think I said this is generally not our normal or typical procedure, but this is not a normal or typical situation for all the reasons I just outlined. So if the council's okay with this, I think he still has to jump through a couple of hoops. I mean, he has to sign off on this and waive the ability to come back at us in the future in lieu of the payment of $37.25. So I don't know if Mr. Batty wants to chime in on this. He endorses this. I endorse this. I hope the council endorses this so we can finish this particular item. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been ongoing a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Was his quote, these are current quotes that
Yeah,
we're
these are
working on?
current quotes.
Yeah.
He got
Okay.
them within the last 30 to
30
45
days, yeah.
And 2 were really close to that. This one was less by about $20, I think, of the other one, and then there was one a couple $1,000 higher, which is, why you get 2-3 quotes.
So questions, comments, favor of staff's recommendation? I think they would like to move on with other things.
I'd like to do it, but I think this will end it, and I think after 12 years, I'm ready to end it. I've only been dealing with Harry. He's a nice enough guy, but I've only been dealing with him for about a year or so on this, and it's like, I prefer not to deal with it anymore, so let's just put it that way.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to approve the payment of the easement agreement for Harry Stillwell with staff's recommendations?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Bruce made the motion and Mr. Tschumperlin seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes
And
5-0.
Mayor and Council, I'll keep you up to date. I mean, we still have a
Thank
little
you.
bit of work we have to do. We have to put together the agreement. He has to sign it. If that all goes well, and, I'll report back on when that happens. So.
Great, okay. Okay, so we'll move on to reports, staff reports.
I just have a couple of items. As I mentioned earlier when I did the PowerPoint on the strategic plan, we will have Chad Katzenberger, not Miles Jensen, but Chad Katzenberger here on June 18th. We'll talk about the kind of the next steps of the site location potentially for the water tower. So he'll be here on June 18th, and I'm finding out kind of the hard way. Our hope was to have him here tonight. Neither of them were available, so we moved it to June 18th. They are available. One of them is.
Will that be on the regular meeting or work session?
I'm not exactly sure. My guess it would be on camera, so maybe under special presentations.
Okay.
I don't think there's any state secrets here that we
Right,
have to.
right.
So, but at this point in time, that's what I plan on doing. If it changes, I'll let you know. If there's something that we
Okay.
maybe have to talk about off camera, but I kind
So-
of doubt it.
When they come back then, what additional information are they going to have?
Well, we're going to talk this week. We talked last week, kind of set up talking this week. We talked a little bit on the phone about the site locations, positives and negatives for each. And I did hear from a few council members at the last meeting that they were here at, that the sites outside of the city proper, there's 2 of those were probably like at the bottom of the list. And there was also the one site that was in control of the homeowners association. So I would put that maybe just above those first 2. So I think we got 2
Or
sites.
at the same level?
Yeah, or all at the same level, yeah, potentially. So we've got the Wild Park site and then the one site, I don't know what we call that site, David. I can't
Off of
remember.
92?
Off of 92, there's this one
The
other
one by
site.
Mud Lake?
They would have to go through
Mhm.
that vacant land under the road. That Clerk owns, is that the? Yeah, so there's 2
Two
properties
possibilities,
to
yeah.
focus on, and we'll try to focus our direction on those 2 to begin with.
Okay.
You know, if we hit a lot of dead ends, we pull the other ones out, but we'll talk about that. And so
Okay.
I think that did hear from a couple of council members at the end of that that meeting, that, you know, they'd like to hear a little bit more about the groundwater in case we do potentially put it in Lyle Park and things of that nature. So we have a few things that we're going to talk about, and so you can get ready, try to anticipate your questions for that night, and we'll have them there that night. And then I've also asked them to put our one and only July meeting on their calendar. I have no idea what we're going to talk about yet, but I don't want to wait till August, so I scheduled them to be here in July. And if we have to cancel, I'd rather cancel it than try to
Okay,
schedule.
right, okay.
So, so that's one item. My second item is, after our last council meeting, I informed the council that we're gonna meet with the other, quote, other party in
Oh,
the fan,
mhm.
noise,
Opine
fan
and-
noise,
Oh.
the neighbors.
Oh,
And so it was Brian and Kristen Opog. It's Opine and Opog. So the Opog, very nice people. We sat and talked with them, both David, myself, and Mr. Batty, with the 2 of them. They had some interesting information. You know, this is he did some recordings with a decibel meter. I don't know how advanced this decibel meter was, but it was a decibel meter. It looked like it was fairly good quality. It was his readings. You know, they seemed normal, in the normal range, different than what Mr. Opine told us. It's kind of hard to sit here and tell you they both seem right, but they kind of both seem right. And kind of with that as the background, staff and Chief Falls was there as well, I apologize. So the 4 of us, after they left, talked, and it's like, you know, like, what do we do? I think our best bet right now is to just see if they'll work it out. Now, at the end of the meeting with the OPOGs, which is on May 23, which was the Wednesday before Memorial Day holiday, they mentioned to us that they were supposed to have a meeting with the Opines, and Mr. Opine even said as such in one of his recent emails before this date. So hopefully they talked and had a meeting of the minds and are be able to figure it out. I haven't heard from either party since. I probably should call or email one of them to find out if they actually did meet. Maybe that's why they're not calling us or talking to us. But, you know, hopefully that they've started to sort that out. And even if they haven't, our recommendation from staff is to let them try to sort this out instead of us getting involved. Mr. Opine was pretty insistent in one of his last emails to us that, you know, because he found out that the NPCA, is it NPCA? Yeah, NPCA has these really fancy schmancy decibel meters, but there's all sorts of training that goes with it. We don't have anybody that knows how to do that. Nor do I feel like I want to spend city resources training somebody to do it, whether it's Nick or a CSO or somebody, because it's going to require 2-3 hours at the thing, and then whatever we come up with information, I hope they do it right. They're going to get some training, so they got to go to that. I'd prefer that they just, and we mentioned this to both parties, I'd prefer that they try to find somebody that can do the readings. Mr. Opine wanted us to do it because he said the cost was somewhere between $2,000 and $2,500 to do it. But I suggested, especially to the Oaklocks, I said, maybe you guys can work together and figure out a vendor that you both agree on. So one can't say that the decibel meter readings have been cooked by whichever side hires them. Just work together, try to find somebody if you feel like you're still unsure as to how loud this thing really is, and we'll go from there, so.
I have a question. Didn't you say that you and Mr. Abel went and actually heard it and
I did
thought,
not go.
or somebody from staff went over and heard it and said that it was
Building official and the building
It was-
inspector who's no longer here.
loud
But-
enough that it was disturbing?
He said it was loud.
So my question is, I struggle with how is this different than a party next door? We don't need decibel meters to register how loud a party is, or we just go tell the people to stop, to turn it down.
Well, you have
How
to
is
keep
this
doing
different?
that then. I mean, if the guys, if Mr. Opine believes that it's so loud that it's equivalent to a loud party, which I'm not sure it is or not, I have no way of knowing. I don't know what the answer is to that, but
Ms.
his
Paul?
decibel readings showed it was significantly less than what Mr. Opine claimed. And in fact, he's got a central air conditioning on the other side of his home, not facing towards the Opines. Opog has a central air conditioning unit, and that read louder at the same distance away. So his contention was it's no louder than a central air conditioning unit. And he had decibel video to prove it. Now, again, I don't know if he put a big piece of tape over it or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm not calling the guy a liar.
But
I'm
the-
just saying,
the
I just don't
nuisance-
know what's real, what's not in this.
The nuisance ordinance says that if it's loud enough to annoy a reasonable person or something of that nature, that it's something that can be addressed by public safety and an officer going to the door and telling them to turn it down. And that we
Maybe
haven't
Paul can
done that.
address that.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'd be happy to address that. I think there is a distinct difference from a loud party to a situation like this, in that a loud party is pretty easy to prove intent. And so that's a very different situation than someone who built a new home, got a building permit, everything was approved all the way through, and has this device installed by a legitimate contractor, and then is told that the neighbor doesn't like it. I think the dispute is that one says it's too loud and the other says it isn't, which is really a civil issue. It's very different than someone doing something like intentionally running a chainsaw or playing music too loud or having people over being obnoxious at a late hour at night. And so those are all situations or scenarios where we would get involved, and we routinely do. But this situation is very different than that. And so I think it really isn't something that we would get involved in. I just think that, as Mr. Barone said, we've heard from both sides. They both seem to be very reasonable, but their description of the scenario is very different. We heard some recordings from Mr. I think it was Opog,
Right.
who's the homeowner that has the device that's being complained about, and he said that he claims that this device on his fireplace is actually not as noisy as his air conditioning condenser, which is on the opposite side of the house. And he provided some recordings to that effect, that along with the decibel readings. And so when you see that, it seems very reasonable to me. I think the part of the issue is the location of this thing. It's up high and it's directly across from a wall with a bedroom. And so that's part of the issue. But intent is really, from the public safety piece, that's kind of the piece that's missing here. So it doesn't really allow us to take any action because there's no willful intent at all here. It's just something he had legitimately installed on his house. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Mr. Batty, do you want to add anything, or is that?
Well, Madam Mayor, Council, I think, as others have said, this kind of demonstrates the difficulty that we find ourselves in collectively dealing with this. We've spent dozens of hours, I think, collectively dealing with this already. There are actually 2 ordinances involved, or potentially involved. The nuisance ordinance, for something to be a public nuisance, it needs to affect some large number of people, or at least more than an individual. In this case, I don't think that applies because it only affects this one party. There is another ordinance, though, that doesn't have that requirement, which potentially comes into play. But as the chief indicates, that's not generally how we've applied it. The last meeting that we had with the OPOGs, he showed, as people have said, a video of what he claims was a recording of the vent at about 48 decibels, as I recall. And then he went around to his house and did the same thing on the air conditioner, and that was also at 48. So his contention is this is no noisier than a standard central air conditioner. None of us know whether that's an accurate reading or not. As the administrator said, the Opines could easily get this thing tested if they were willing to spend the money. They're asking us to do it, but it's a question of training somebody going out at night, because that's when the lower decibel levels. Do we really want a staff person going out at night for an hour trying to do something that we're really just not capable of doing? And so I think at least at this point, we've concluded that we don't have a constructive role in what's really a private dispute between the two parties.
So we hope they work it out. And if they don't, we actually have one other option for them. And Chief Falls talked about it. There's mediation services that are available that they both would have to agree to participate in that. But again, that's another thing that's, I don't know what the cost is to them. It's low cost or no cost.
Very low cost.
Yeah, so I mean, that's an option that we offer, police offers in a number of situations, and this would be probably a more unique offering, but it would still be applicable. I'm not sure if the council is aware or not, but just to remind them that the Opines, the ones with the fan, they actually did replace
Opogs.
Opogs, I'm sorry.
Opogs have the fan,
I'm getting
yeah.
my O's mixed up.
I know.
The Opogs, the owners of the fan in the unit, they actually did replace the size of the fan. They shrunk it in size. I don't know how much, but they put in a smaller fan. The people that sold it to them and they are both a little concerned that it might violate the warranty or decrease the likelihood of it lasting as long as it has been told to them it was going to last. So, I think they've already made an attempt financially to fix this, but it still hasn't satisfied his neighbors, at least at this point in time.
Right, okay.
So he's replaced the fan during this controversy?
Yeah.
Just
So
before
he's
we
made an
started-
effort already to downscale?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yep. He did try to shrink it, and I think Opine said it helps some, but it's still not enough, so the guy tried, so I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Thank you. Anything?
And that's all I have.
Okay,
Cassandra has
next.
one.
okay.
So just an update on our annual bus tour. Our third annual bus tour is this coming Tuesday, June 12th. I just wanted to make all of you aware, and anyone listening at home, that we are almost full. So we have about 5 seats left at this point for anybody else who'd like to join us on the bus tour. In the first 2 years, we were able to accommodate walk-ups. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to do that, but we are letting people know as they're calling in and as we get close to maxing out the bus, that they're welcome to come. We haven't every year had a situation where people have registered and not shown. So there is still the possibility. So if you hear anything from neighbors or residents that they're interested but they're afraid they didn't sign up, they still can come at 5:30 that night. We leave at 6 on the dot. We do start checking people in at 5:30. We'll start boarding at 5:45. We'll leave at 6. We'll be back by 9. So hopefully we can accommodate everybody who wants to attend, but we're very excited to see that every year we've slowly picked up with how many residents are participating. This year we're having less repeat customers than we did in the previous 2 years, which I think is great. I mean, it's definitely a different tour every single year, and I think it's good to see additional residents getting involved, which is good as well.
Right.
So
Good.
this coming Tuesday, speak up.
Week
or-
from this Tuesday.
A week from Tuesday, from
Right.
tomorrow.
A week
Yeah.
from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a better way to say it. So we just want to encourage everyone who's interested to act now so that we can get people on the list who are wanting to be on the list.
Thank you. Any other staff reports? So, Chief Falls, is it next month, or next meeting, you're going to do a quick police report kind of thing?
Yes,
Okay.
annual report summary for
Okay.
2017,
Great,
yes.
thank you. All right.
And you've got a-
All right. So moving on to council reports, let's start with Mr. Tschumperlin.
I attended the Planning Commission last week. I don't know if it was due to me being there, but it was the quickest one I ever saw. Never had that while I was there.
Was it nice weather?
One variance which we approved in the consent agenda tonight, it was real straightforward and easy to agree to, I guess, and so it was over by 20 after 7.
All right.
So they wanted me back because actually the discussion then on council news actually took about as long because they were all very interested in the consent or the short-term rentals.
Okay, all right.
So that was it.
And then you had Pioneer Creek.
Nope, that was
Okay.
time
That's
before.
coming up. All right, all right.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
At the end of the last LMCD meeting, we, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, there was a proposal to take 4 of the slips that are just installed this year at Back Channel Brewing and turn them into transient slips. After a lot of discussion, that just kind of as a side note, things work a little bit differently at the LMCD than they do here. Generally, we discuss something and then we order the council to, or the attorney to draft the motion for the next time. So it passed on a 6-5 vote to allow that. However, the final vote will come up this next week.
Okay.
And so there's 14 people on the LMCD, and obviously there were 11 there at the time. 6-5 vote. So, long story short, it's not quite settled just yet.
Okay.
But you get the general gist of where it might go.
All right.
It's going to be changed a little bit. Paddle Tap will be making that a port of call as part of this proposal in addition to the 4 slips. However, there was a portion of that to allow stand-up paddle boards to dock there as well, and that was stricken from the proposal. That was not viewed positively. So, so final vote on that to come. Also want to make sure that we pick up our discussion on special assessments sometime in the future.
Yeah, that's in the queue for another work session, was it, or?
You know, I'm not exactly sure when we'll bring it back, but it'll be fairly soon.
We wanted to, right.
Talked about,
Yeah.
Gotta get a look at that, so.
Yeah, it's in the queue. All right.
Let's see, wrapping up Trista Day and the pig races, I did send out handwritten thank you notes, and Paul and Ron, I have yours with me tonight. And if we are looking at doing 2019, we should probably lock that in because they book out really fast. So I don't know if that's something we could do now, or is it something
To say,
decide so that I can lock it in, or is that something we bring up at a next work session, or?
You know, if you want to secure it, then maybe, I don't know when the date is, I'm sure you can figure it out by talking to either Cassandra and/or Amy and figure out the date and see availability, and we can probably at least have you verbally lock it in, but then bring a council action if that's what if the council wants to go the pig race route again, we'll have something.
Yeah.
Just put it on consent or whatever, so just approximate cost, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But minus your fundraising, so.
All right, and what else? Oh, I'm going on the bus tour. I'm very excited. That's all.
Okay, what do I have? So I have a request, again, this would be in the queue, to look, we had a meeting a while ago, Ms. Mortenson and staff and I, regarding an issue, a junk issue. And the request was made to maybe, this wouldn't affect the existing properties that are like this, but maybe we could prevent this from happening in the future. And so I just would like to take a look at our zoning and how that would work, if it would work, maybe at a future work session. And then, because I know we have to redo some zoning, but you know, maybe that's part of that, I don't know. But just kind of look at it. Let's see, since last meeting, I'm trying to remember. A lot of things go on in between, but I don't really have anything pertinent, I think, that's I'll be going to Northwest League, and also I'm going to the LMC Annual Conference. That's coming up June 20th and 21st, I think, or 23rd, somewhere around there. So I'll be going to that. Hopefully doing some good networking. With that, I think we're through.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Molitor made that motion and Ms. Bruce seconded. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes.
It's under. The under wins. Yeah, we had the under.